Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Krishna Padaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagachatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridarasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Kaludhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to our Friday evening Sangha. So what chapter are we discussing today? Devotional service? Is that the title, Arjun?
Yeah.
And what have we been discussing in the last few weeks?
Can you help us jiggle our memory?
Devotional qualities? Which one? All these wonderful devotional qualities, right? Starting with verse 13, Krishna has been describing the wonderful qualities of his devotees. Those who have very sweet qualities that are very dear to Krishna. And we've been discussing how do we develop these qualities? Going to a self-help class? Going to a self-improvement class? How do we develop these qualities that Krishna is describing?
By staying in association and having faith first.
By staying in association and having faith, yes. What else? How do we develop these devotional qualities?
Chanting.
By chanting. It is by devotional service that these are the natural qualities that exist, that are intrinsic to the soul. Right? So, these qualities are not one that we have to go out and find. We don't have to figure them out. They actually reside naturally within all of us. So, Krishna is now giving us the details of what type of qualities will come as we progress in devotional service. And our process in understanding them is to recognize these qualities when they are present in others that we're associating with, and also within ourselves. And we try to enhance and bring those qualities out. But we should be confident that by the practice of service, these wonderful qualities will emerge. Our new devotee has arrived. Gauranga is here. You're all safe now. So, last time we talked about verse 15, that a devotee does not put anyone into difficulty. That is the nature of a devotee. Not only other humans in their interactions with others in society, but also all living entities. And one goes through great effort to be mindful of not to put anyone into difficulty. And we talked about the great Mugrari, the hunter, who went from one end of the extreme to this very pure quality, where he was putting such undue stress on the animals he was half killing, to, by the mercy of association with a pure devotee, almost overnight he purified, to the point where he would watch where he would put his foot down so that he would not step on an ant. How many of us have looked for ants in our last 100 steps we've taken outside? Not one of us. But that is the nature. Of course, there's a practical application as well. But we understand that to be somebody, one who is not disturbed by anything. Right? One doesn't let external circumstances disturb one's consciousness. Too often, we worry about this person, that person, this around me. But instead, the devotee is focused on their devotional service, and purely focused on their devotional service, and has no concern or worry about if anybody is giving some difficulty. And one is equipoised in happiness and distress, again, not disturbed by any of the material affairs. Who wants to be free from fear and anxiety? All of us? How many examples do we have of devotees who are free from fear, yet in very fearful situations? Who are some examples? Prahlad Maharaj, very prominent example. Such a fearful condition he was put in, yet he was undisturbed. Any other examples?
Srila Prabhupada.
Who?
Srila Prabhupada.
How?
Like, in the beginning, they were, that one person in the apartment tried to even kill Srila Prabhupada and stuff, but he still, it didn't deter him away. He kept going.
Srila Prabhupada had so many fearful situations. Coming alone to a world nobody knew. How many of us would leave our home, comfort, with a few dollars in our pocket, no clue what was going to happen a couple of days from when we landed? Maybe we had the first day or two figured out, and would come and just start living in the very metropolis of New York City. How many of us would do that? It takes a very fearless person. And then, as we know, he endured so many things, living with someone who tried to physically harm him in his drug-laden episode. And like this, so many different experiences, suffering heart attacks. Suffering heart attacks with no medical care. How many of us would carry on? That was the beginning of his journey. Yet he was fearless. And what was the source of his fearlessness?
Faith in Krishna.
Krishna has a plan. Krishna has me protected. If he wants me gone, I'll be gone. No matter what can I do. And if he wants to protect, he'll protect. So faith, just like Prahlad Maharaj. Any other examples?
Vidas Thakur, how
Haridas
he's beaten by so many marketplaces. Still it's remained undisturbed.
He remained very peaceful. Did not object. So we have many of these examples, both modern day and Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, when he was on Brajmandal Parikrama, they tried to kill him. They had hired an assassin to come and kill him, and they had bribed the police. Now, this happened somewhere second, third, fourth day of the Parikrama. I don't remember, whenever they go, what day. And he escaped. Now, how many of us would carry it on and continue? I said, Hare Krishna, next year. But he carried on. He had no fear. He was ferociously and fearlessly preaching. Fully protected by faith in Krishna. Yes, well.
In our early days too,
Yes, we can like
in the early days when they bombed, like the and the dacoits came to Mayapur and stuff, and the devotees had fought against them. They, in a foreign country like that.
In the early days of development of Mayapur project, there were so many attacks and different people brought bombs and guns, and it was very dangerous. But the disciples carried on under the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So we have many wonderful examples of how to be fearless.
Prabhuji, one more.
Yeah.
What about Guru Maharaj also now? See, in the situation of COVID and all that, how he's remaining calm and he's trying to always give classes, lectures. Many times he's put in such situations too, but he's remaining undeterred.
He is living, serving so many different projects and different needs without fear. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj fearlessly left to attend to some important matters here. No fear. So this is the quality of a devotee. When we become fearful or anxious, we should remember back to these pastimes, because they remind us of the mood of the devotee. These pastimes are not just for entertainment, but they're meant to be instructive in how we can reflect back on them in our times, where we face different circumstances. Right? And we can try to learn from these footsteps. Okay, so let's read now verse number 16. Someone wants to read the verse?
You want the verse?
You can read the translation too. So.
My devotee who is not dependent on ordinary course of activities, who is pure expert without care, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it. If automatically, by the grace of the Supreme, money comes to him, he is not agitated. Naturally, a devotee takes a bath at least twice in a day and rises early in the morning for devotional service. Thus, he is naturally clean both inwardly and outwardly. A devotee is always expert because he fully knows the essence of all activities of life and he is convinced of the authoritative scriptures. A devotee never takes the part of a particular party, therefore he is carefree. He is never pained because he is free from all imaginations. He knows that his body is designation, so if there are some bodily pains, he is free. The pure devotee does not endeavor for anything which is against the principles of devotional service. For example, constructing a big building requires great energy and a devotee does not take to such business if it does not benefit him by advancing his devotional service. He may construct a temple for the Lord, and for that he may take all kinds of anxiety, but he does not construct a big house for his personal relations. Hare Krishna.
So, Krishna is describing several qualities here, so let's discuss some of them. And Prabhupada has given some nice discussion in the purport. Let's see. So, what does it mean to be pure? Krishna said, one who is pure is very dear to me. So what does Krishna mean by pure?
No material desires.
Okay, so no material desires.
Shower.
Huh?
Externally pure too.
Externally
Shower.
pure.
Yeah.
What does Srila Prabhupada say?
Clean shaven, shower. Oh, what do you say? Take bath at least twice in a day and rise early in the morning.
Right? So, purity is both internal and external, right? In our Vedic culture, we maintain a very clean existence. Actually, if you see this virus, it's transmitted through impure, unclean habits. Not washing our hands properly, letting our personal fluids spread everywhere. Like in our Vedic systems, if we cough, we make sure we understand we can contaminate anything that touches our saliva like this. Before eating, we wash our feet, our hands. After eating, we wash. We take bath. After passing stool, we do all these different things to keep ourselves clean. What is the purpose of outwardly keeping ourselves clean so much? We're not this body, we're spirit soul. Why is it so important?
Affects our consciousness.
How?
If we are dirty or stay in a dirty environment, like our mind also takes upon that energy of dirtiness. If we stay in a clean environment and be clean ourselves, your mind feels cleaner.
Yes. So one cleanses themselves because it affects our consciousness. The Mahabhagavad may not take back. You may be surprised to know. Some of the great, they may go. But that is for a whole different platform. It is not to be replicated by us. That is trying to, they're using every millisecond of time in devotional service. But for us sadhakas, this is very important. What about inward purity? What are some aspects of inward purity? As Prabhupada says, clean inwardly and outwardly.
Non-envious.
Non-envious. That is an impure state of mind, right? What else?
Anger.
Anger. Greed. What does Srila Prabhupada talk about in terms of he references pure towards the end of the purport? What is he referring to here? Expert? Yeah. But
He doesn't do things for his personal
he doesn't do things for his personal endeavor. But the general principle, Prabhupada explains just a couple lines up. What's the general principle of purity?
He does not interfere for anything against the principle of devotional service.
Yes. Nothing he does or she does is against the principles of devotional service. Sometimes some ideas come. Oh, I can, do something maybe on the black market to do some business and help Krishna build a temple. his devotional service, right? But actually, that is not pleasing to Krishna. It is not pure. It is against the principles of devotional service. Right? Sometimes, during Srila Prabhupada's time, there was some, questionable, I'll say, book distribution techniques. And they were learning. And so they would present to Prabhupada whether this is right or wrong, and then they would get some good guidance. But Prabhupada would say, we must be honest and truthful in our distribution. We do not want to give a bad name to what we are distributing, so we should remain pure in the process. So this purity means that one does not transgress the principles of devotional service in their rendering of devotional service. Right? So sometimes, we see this thing, and a devotee remains very true to their principles. So sometimes in the practice of bhakti, you go to the grocery store and you're buying some fruits and vegetables for Krishna, and you notice they don't charge you for something, and you go, they didn't charge. That's not honest, even though it's for Krishna. So that is not, again, against the principles. Just taking a small example. So we should not cut corners in our devotional service. Prabhupada handled himself in this whole society with very precise adherence to all the rules and regulations, even of the society. Following everything nicely. So he is exemplifying this approach of pure. How about expert? What does expert mean? What is he expert in? Nuclear science? Expert in video games?
He knows the essence of all the activities of life. He's convinced of the authoritative scriptures. What's the real purpose of life?
And expert in the essence of all activities of life. Based on?
Scripture.
Vyavasayatmika buddhi, can we say 1 point in intelligence to this?
Yeah. Very expertly following the spiritual master, the guru. Was Srila Prabhupada expert? Like beyond comprehension, actually. If you see how expert he was expert in the big things. How to navigate, I think last time or a couple of times ago I told the story how the disciples were, tricked into giving some money to some big New York businessman. And they could not get the money back. They paid some $5,000 deposit. And they tried, and Srila Prabhupada gave instructions, you go this way, nothing happened. And then Srila Prabhupada very expertly wrote one letter to him, and next day the money came back. There's an old Swami from India dealing with, this very, powerful man, and brought him to his knees. Srila Prabhupada was so expert. He, during the trial, where there was a trial brought against the Hare Krishna movement, claiming it to be a cult, and they presented as one of their facts a picture of Lord Nrsimhadev. And so you see, they believe in this half man, half lion. This is all, mythology and just, imagination. So anybody knows what Srila Prabhupada did in response? How expert he was? So smart. He told the devotees, you tell our attorneys, to submit Srimad Bhagavatam as evidence. Now there's a very particular point that he understood that when in the court of law, if you submit something of evidence, it must be read.
So nice.
So he so expertly got them to read Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, what was the hope of them winning the case after they read Srimad Bhagavatam? But he knew. So he submitted whole Srimad Bhagavatam and said, this is the validity of our faith. And so they had to read all Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a court rule. All evidence was
All the 12.
oh, and whatever was translated up to that point. They didn't have all the cantos at that point. But he was expert in these big things. But I forgot the disciple's name. He was telling this pastime, I remember, very sweet. So when they came to Bombay, and they were staying in Juhu, and Juhu was a field, and they had built the shed for Radha Rasavihari this time, and so some basic things were going on. And they had gone to buy some fruits and vegetables, and some other boga. And they came back, and Srila Prabhupada asked, where you bought this from? How many to pick? And then he said, okay, you buy these vegetables from this market, you buy this flour from this market, you buy this from here. And I'm thinking, he hasn't been in Bombay in 10 years, many years. And yet, in the small tasks of Krishna consciousness, he was expert. In every little detail. There was nothing beyond. Talked about the dictaphone. How Brahmananda needed an hour and a half lesson from the shopkeeper how to operate it. And he's thinking, how I'm going to teach Swamiji how to use this advanced piece of machinery. They put it in front of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, tick. And I don't need any lesson. He didn't need the manual, nothing. So expert. So we think expert just in the realm of Shastra. Yes, that is the foundation. But actually, in managing the affairs of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada was so expert in handling so many people and the difficult situation of acquiring the land for Juhu. He was so expert in navigating that environment. So many other examples. Any other one anyone want to share, Srila Prabhupada, or anyone's you've seen expertise that's inspired you? One more. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so expert in his job. He could do the job of the magistrate that others are taking in 8-10 hours in half the time. And he was the best magistrate, actually. So all the difficult, tough cases that were hard to understand, they would go to him. He was so expert in his job that when he wanted to retire, they said no. He said, I'm done. He said, no, we'll bring. They built a single gauge rail line from Vidyanagar to his house in Mayapur. Anybody has been to his house in Mayapur? Right, you've seen right outside the gates, there's a rail line. It ends right there. And they built a train. Why they would build a whole train to bring him to and from the office every day? He must have been very valuable. Very valuable to them. Yeah.
One more example.
Yeah.
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how when his father had presented, when his father got sick and they had to present the case in front of those brahmanas, how expertly he presented the case so well that everybody applauded that young age.
Yeah.
When he was a scholar and everybody knows.
He defeated all these he was quite young at that time.
Yeah.
And he defeated a very, literate and educated intellectualist, very convincingly, we can say. He was very, very expert. Any other examples?
Rupa
Sure.
Goswami and
Huh?
Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they're great experts, right? One's prime minister and finance minister, and the king couldn't do without them. And he came all the way home to find out why he not able to come back.
He was so desperate to know why Sanatana Goswami stopped coming to work. He had to say, let me see for my own eyes what is happening. So we see in Krishna consciousness is not, simply about, just being sentimental, but is using our intelligence to manage the affairs of Krishna very expertly. Jiva Goswami was a very expert in managing. After Rupa and Sanatana Goswami left, he established so many of the principles that we see today alive and managing the affairs, not just scriptures. He actually developed the whole concept of the will. The legal will was developed by Jiva Goswami. And there's many. How about without cares? What does that mean? What is without cares?
Material things.
Don't care of material things. Like? What do you?
Like take too much care of the body, like spending more time, I guess, which is needed.
Yeah. They can care so much.
Like reading like literature, like to spiritually uplift.
Yeah. What else? Any other? What does
Not-
without cares mean? Does it mean we
Worry
just don't
himself.
care about anybody? I'm gonna do what I want and I don't care what anybody thinks?
No.
Is that without cares?
No.
What does it mean?
His only focus is on Krishna, so it kind of makes him carefree. Because it's so narrow, laser focus. So he doesn't have to think about anything that's around him.
Yeah. Any other ideas? Good.
He's not taking sides of anyone. Like some people, he's just concerned, like as Prabhuji said, to focus on his devotional service rather than being a part of politics also.
Yeah, not taking sides in different debates and discussions. Prabhupada says that does not take part of a particular party. So he's not concerned about politics, Trump versus Biden. Doesn't matter. All Shudras anyways. Sorry, it's just the reality. I'm speaking of myself as well, so I can say that. But they don't take sides in the different affairs, different conversations that are taking place and happening. This group thinks this and this group thinks that. They're not associating themselves with that type of disturbance. Even in devotional realm, we see different factions and this philosophy and that. And the devotee rises above that and stays fixed on his devotional service. But it doesn't mean that one becomes careless. I don't care. I'll cook something for whatever. No, that does not. Because you cannot be expert and carefree. Right? Without cares. You have to be both. So careless means I'm not concerned about what so and so is saying, or this thing is happening here, or what somebody else is interacting with. I'm not concerned with any of that. My concern is how I can serve Krishna nicely and maintain nice relationships with everyone. Because I have no envy if I have these qualities. So one doesn't become, detached in the sense of callous. Oh, I don't care about you. You're not related to me. No, one becomes friendly to all. Right? So one becomes, but without cares means don't get into the politics. Is there politics even in devotional service? And what happens when our mind goes into those areas? How is the quality of our chanting?
Down.
We meditate more on that than on Krishna. Sometimes we wonder, we wish I wish it was as easy to meditate on Krishna as it is some other gossip. If we want to gossip, we gossip about Krishna. But not what this devotee is doing, what this person. Did you know this person? That kind of talk. Big audiences. But we should not give audience. Krishna says, without cares. But again, a devotee is very kind and loving to all. But doesn't lose respect or care. How about not striving for some result? What does that mean? That sounds unmotivated, no? So what is not striving for some result?
Personal results.
So not striving for a personal result.
But we'll work as hard as possible for Krishna.
How hard they'll work for Krishna?
Everything.
Everything they have. But in working hard for Krishna, also the devotee is striving for result.
Striving,
It's not attached to
not
it.
attached to the
Not attached to the result.
Like when somebody is serving, so they expect at least like that they are able to please Krishna. Like is that like expecting something? You
So,
know?
yeah, like when we serve Krishna, we have an expectation, a hope to please Krishna. So, the mood that we want to do is our pleasure should be in the rendering of the service, not in the result of the service. So our experience should be the opportunity to serve Krishna. That is what is my motivating factor, not the result. Because the result might come or it might not come. But if I'm attached to the result, then when it comes, I'm motivated. But when it doesn't come, I'm unmotivated. Anybody has gone on book distribution? Like out on the street?
I mean, in some of the homes we have gone.
Okay. So you have this experience. How is the initial experience in book distribution?
Still not interested.
You get told no a lot, right? And what does that do to our motivation to go out the next day? Makes it difficult, right? So, in book distribution, our happiness, our satisfaction should be not in how many books were distributed, but in how many hours I did it. How many doors I was able to knock on. How many people I could at least engage. Whether they take it or not is not between me, is between them and Krishna. So if my satisfaction is based on how many hours I went out, who is in control then of the experience? We are. If many books go, we're okay. If not one book goes, that is Krishna's plan. So we strive for the service, but leave the result to Krishna. So Prabhupada opens the purport with a comment along these lines. What is he telling us?
Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it.
And then the next sentence.
If automatically, by the grace of the Supreme, money comes to him, he's not agitated.
If it comes, I'll use it in Krishna's service. I'm not going to go to the end of the earth, even if the goal is Krishna's service. Because one should understand, Krishna will facilitate. So the devotee who's very expert, who's very pure, understands, he gives 100% effort. And then whatever is Krishna's plan, that will happen. Right? And you see this in the life of Srila Prabhupada. In the early days, many days, he would not even have money to go buy fruits and vegetables. Nothing was coming. If you read his early diaries, he was even writing how much came each day, what the expenses were, what the balance was. It's nothing. He was continued on rendering service. In the later days, millions of books were being sold and printed by BBT. And what Prabhupada was doing? Relaxing on the ocean house, still living a very simple life, but building great, great temples for Krishna. Building this foundation of books so that we can understand this philosophy. So Prabhupada showed us this. If it comes, use it in Krishna's service. If it doesn't come, Prabhupada was so dear to Krishna, he would make an offer on a temple without a penny in his pocket. He had faith. If Krishna wants it, he'll send the money. Our own Devasadan Mandir. He offered $300,000 cash right on the grounds next to at the bank, edge of the pool, next to the pool house. And the Devotee said, we don't have $3. And immediately, 2 loving disciples came forward. There's faith in Krishna. So, not striving for some result. But does this mean we become lazy? So what is the motivation? If we're not going to be focused on the result, what's the motivation? How do we not become lazy or carefree about the service? What is the motivation?
Krishna's perfect plan. So we have to have faith in it.
But what is our motivation to do this service in Krishna's plan? Okay, Krishna's plan will take fold. I'm just a passenger.
So the motivation to serve Krishna is like this is the way that we can please Him.
Yeah. So this is our attempt to please Him. Krishna has given me some intelligence, some form, body, some resources, whatever they are. So I'll use them in the service of Krishna. But if the result comes, that's Krishna's. And if it doesn't come, that's also Krishna's. Both sides. If it fails, not my problem. I did the best I could. Whatever intelligence I had, whatever energy I had, whatever ability I had, it's all coming from Krishna. So the devotee knows, use it to the best of our ability. But it becomes very stress-free. Because we don't have to worry. I did this and somebody else messed it up. How many of us, we lose those. I don't know, I made all these things and then they came and added one more teaspoon of salt and it ruined everything. Krishna knows what we did. He knows. And He also knows what everybody else did. We don't have to go and tell. He knows. Our happiness should be in, I did the best I could, according to my ability. Sometimes we see someone's doing some service. Oh, I can't do like that. Krishna doesn't care this or that. He cares according to your ability, how are you doing? According to the ability that He gave us, how are you doing? That is what Krishna is looking at. When the billionaire gives $1,000 check, and a very poor person, no money, comes and brings one palmful of chipped rice, which Krishna appreciates more? In value, what is more, $1,000 or a palmful of chipped rice? Chipped rice is more valuable. Because according to that person's ability, they gave something extraordinary. So we also don't have to compare ourselves to others. Oh, they can do this so nicely and I cannot, I can't even. Krishna knows whatever our abilities are, whatever we can do, use that in the service of Krishna. And don't worry the result. It is Krishna's. So we also never have any reason to be demotivated. Whatever ability we have, just use in the service of Krishna. Any other comments or observations from this verse? Any questions?
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhu, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead defines the various level of devotional qualities for neophyte devotees through several verses so that we can try to judge our current levels and how much more to achieve to become a pure devotee.
Is that a question? Or
Yeah, he's asking you, does the Supreme Personality, is this why he's telling us all of this?
So these qualities that are discussed from verse 13 to 20, these are all the wonderful qualities of the pure devotee. So these are the qualities that are inherent and natural to all of us. Because all of us in our pure state, we are free from envy. We are free from anger, greed. We have none of these impure qualities. And not only that, we have all these wonderful qualities. Friendly and loving to all, expert, without cares. These are all the natural qualities of the soul. So, Krishna is explaining that by rendering devotional service, because remember, he is concluding this section on devotional service in this chapter. So by rendering devotional service, these are the qualities that manifest, and these are the qualities that are very dear to him. So yes, there should be some active effort by us to cultivate these qualities. But remember, the principal means to acquire these qualities is through our devotional service, through our chanting. So we know that these qualities will naturally emerge, but we should understand what they are, so when they come up, we begin to enhance them and create them. So that is why we understand what they are, but they naturally come as we purify in our devotional service. So we don't have to kind of externally go out and try to become expert or without cares. The expertise of how to manage the affairs, that will come from Krishna. Who taught Srila Prabhupada how to operate the dictaphone? Krishna. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he figured out how to operate a giant printing press. Now, if you've seen a printing press, there are so many mechanical pieces that go into a printing press. He was in the village of Mayapur, yet he became so expert. Where did that expertise come from? So one knows by rendering devotional service, these qualities will naturally come. So we become aware of them, and we cultivate them by the practice of bhakti, and primarily by chanting. Anything else? Yes,
Prabhuji, like you said, no, these devotional qualities emerge while doing devotional service. What if a person doing devotional service and for whatever reason the soul departs? So now in the next life, those devotional qualities will remain intact? Like, will they emerge naturally? Or when the situation arrives for devotional service, then they will arrive? I mean, so,
Yeah.
just kind of.
So, Krishna explains that whatever we do in bhakti, there is no loss or diminution. So if I've completed 1% of bhakti in this life, in the next life I pick up from 1% and go forward. And we compare that to material affairs. Whatever money I have in this life, next life, start back at 0. If I know ABCs in this life, next life, right back to learning ABCs again. Albert Einstein was not a genius when he was born again. All over again. But in bhakti, whatever we left off, we pick up from that point forward. So if we have, developed some of these qualities in the practice of bhakti, and then our life, this body is terminated, in the next life, we'll pick up. Now, there is potential for some pause in duration of when that picks back up. But when one picks back up, they'll pick up where they left off. So, and that's why we see some people come to Krishna consciousness like very fast, like all of a sudden, where they came from. We can understand there was some past piety, some past maybe exposure that they are now picking up from and going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Anything else? Any questions? Okay. So next week we'll discuss verse number 17 and continue discussing these very, very sweet qualities. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.